State's women's open softball team, known as the SA Stars, have just won the national championships, the Gillies Shield. Joining us to discuss this thrilling win and all things softball is Softball SA State Operations Manager, James Harris. James, welcome.
Wallace. Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me.
James, a wonderful championship win by the SA Stars.
Yeah, unreal. I choke up when I start talking about it. It's second time in 4 years, an emotional win in 2022, and this year it felt dominant.
James, a thriller as well in the final against Queensland. Just take us through that final innings and Millie Fidge's heroics.
It's a great story, isn't it? Player of the final in 2022 as a pitcher. Millie Fidge comes in as what we call a designated player. Baseball knows it as a designated hitter. A little bit more flexibility in our sport. So with bat in hand this time rather than ball in hand, she hits the ball 225 feet, hits the fence on the full. You know, I'm out of my chair on the couch watching the live stream, willing it to go over for the win. She gets to second base, scores on Olivia Elliott's hit, and she plays a crucial moment. She was in the final play in 2022. She fielded a ground ball for the win and then crosses the plate for the winning run in 2025. It was something to watch. I'll watch it over and over again if I can.
James, you just said it's our second win in 4 years. It would sound like, therefore, that this is a fairly regular occurrence for South Australian softball. But am I right that this is only our third win in history, and you've got to go back to about the 1950s for the other one?
Yeah, 1956 we won at Thebarton Oval here in Adelaide, and then 66 years later we won it here in 2022 as hosts, and then 4 years later in Melbourne we've done it again. Regular occurrence, 2019 runner-up, 2020 runner-up. 2021, of course, was cancelled for COVID purposes and reasons. And then we won it in 2022, third the last 2 years. And to be back on top, it's a good feeling.
James, I have to be honest, I didn't see this coming. It looked like a squad of very few big names. You might talk to us about Lexi Kilfoyle in a moment, who would be unheard of, I guess, outside of the hardcore softball community. But it looked like a squad without necessarily a lot of star factor. Just describe what this group was like and how they managed to conjure this incredible victory together.
An incredible group, actually. Missing some stars. 9 capped South Australians are currently out there that are still involved in the sport. Capped Australian players for the Aussie Spirit. Some maybe in the early years of retirement, a couple of pregnancies, and then some international that are based in US colleges that weren't available. So we only took one capped Australian player away in this team, which was Maddie Scott, who is also an interesting story, a son of daughter of a star baseball player. Andrew Scott went away to college and debuted for the Aussie Spirit before she debuted for her own Stars Open women's team. And then some of our college players that were available in Abby Jorgensen, as well as the Fidge sisters, Millie and Ruby, but then some local talent. We had to borrow a couple of players from interstate. Paige Smith's going to have a story to tell. Her state, Western Australia, finished bottom, and she was a reject for them and now a national champion. And then you add in some of our local internationals that are brought in by our local clubs to play in our Softball SA Premier League and make themselves available for to play national championships for our state team. Reagan Diaz, Brian Marcelino, and Neely Peterson, all playing locally. 2 of those are in their second year of being here. We're a destination state for these international players. We've got over a dozen of them playing in our Premier League this year, all wanting to extend their softball experience. We don't pay for them whatsoever. In fact, every person in that background photo paid their own way to be there. And Lexi Kilfoyle was our gun for hire, so to speak. She was a flying player out of Oklahoma State and a recent #1 draft pick in the US Pro League.
Just describe for us how you come across these players, because it looks like our club competition, the Softball SA Premier League, does very well at finding these players. Is that driven by Softball SA, or are the clubs the ones who get on the front foot finding these players?
That's a good question. Some are registered on an online overseas players looking for a place to play. Others come through contacts. The likes of Steph Trzynski, another capped Australian player who wasn't available for this tournament through injury, had a great college career. And so through the college careers that we've had players go to and come back from, Mel McGee's and Tracy Mosley's of the past, and now your Steph Trzynski's, Annalie Dolmans, have got these connections to bring people to Adelaide to play. Like I said, destination state for these players, because there's nowhere for them to play in the month through October through to March, and so that they're looking for a place to play, and New Zealand's probably the only other place. And for women's softball, Australia's a place to go. Perhaps for men's softball, it could be either Australia or New Zealand. But yeah, the college recruitment process then also gets us a little bit more contacts as well, and so we're happy with our current arrangement.
James, you talked about Lexi Kilfoyle. You mentioned her number one draft pick in the Pro League over in the US. She was pitcher of the tournament. She was the MVP in the grand final. Just give a bit of an overview of the difference she made, not just so much as a player, but just adding some experience and some smarts around the group.
Yeah, she was. She brought some professionalism to the team from all accounts, as well as just being there and in the moment. And each game, she always looked like she finished stronger than she started as well, including in the grand final. I said to Wallace before I was watching the grand final with my wife, and I said in around about the halfway mark, I said, she's getting stronger. We score the next run, we're going to win this. We did, and we did win. And you could tell the way that she was dominant in the back half of games. She was great at the start of games, but she was dominant in the back half. And you can see in the poster behind me, she towers over everyone, including Ben Lucas, our coach. A young male coach in this sport is rare to see, and the guy's a talent. When it comes to coaching, he's never afraid to take risks, etc. And Ben and his coaching staff did so well to manage Lexi throughout the entire tournament. They had to play a lot of games. There was heat, there was rain, and a lot of delays as well. That's another story for the grand final legacy. But yeah, they managed her really well.
And a big shout out to Softball SA's sponsors, Aqaba Hotel, Spacequake Sports, Evrite, MC Sportswear, and Eastern.
James, you mentioned Maddie Scott, daughter of Andrew Scott, legend of Australian baseball. Of course, Ruby and Millie Fidge, their father Darren, still going strong, playing for Goodwood. I see as having a profound effect in the local competition there. But their mum was a talented softballer in her own right. Talk a bit about the entire Fidge family.
Softball SA royalty. Annie Fidge won a national championship as a coach in 2006, had the likes of Vanessa Stokes and Belinda White in that team, so spoiled for talent that year, and really did start the turnaround for the Stars program, probably 2008, 9, 10, maybe around that era there. Didn't have the same success with the Open Women's team that she did with the under-19 team, but through those programs and successes, her and she has a little group, Janelle Barrett, one of them, who's the national chair of selectors for Softball Australia now, developed a great program that got the national selection. So Annie Fidge is a Hall of Famer, mostly for her coaching, but was a reasonable state player as well. And then her sister Karen Dale was an outstanding player in her own right as well. Now a junior coach.
Over 1,000 games for Walkerville.
And still going.
Yep.
And coached our under-18s this year as well to a third place finish, which was pretty respectable going by where we thought we were at. And then, of course, Darren, one of the guys from the baseball office that we share an office with, joked that he'll play till he's 90, which is only just around the corner. No, a kid. He played in our All-Star game with you, Ben, I should say, in October. So I think he still has a love for that softball game as well as baseball. But the two girls, both in US colleges at the moment, one in California, the other one in Hawaii, massive softball futures ahead of them.
James, you mentioned the coach, Ben Lucas. What has happened over the last several years for the Stars program for you to be so successful?
Well, having Ben come along was a new breath of fresh air for the group. Full credit where it's due to Bill Benedictson, who was the coach in 2022. He moved on and Ben came in. It was fantastic, firstly, for Ben to put his hand up. A young male coach in an open women's team may normally have been a little bit hesitant, not knowing if he'd have the respect of the playing group or whatever, but he's coached Port Adelaide to their first club premiership in the Premier League a couple of years back. And in 3 grand finals in a row, they've lost the last 2, but he's been there. Ultra aggressive coach that likes to steal and hit and run and let the batters do the talking with their own bat, really backs them in a power running game. And he was very ably assisted by Justina Adams, who's the Sturt coach in the Premier League, who comes down from Port Pirie every week. So he had a great group behind him. I think Justina Adams and Nikita Platt, who was new to coaching in South Australia, I think originally from Mount Gambier, spent a bit of time in Western Australia before coming back this year, put a hand up to be part of the group, banged straight in. So they work really well together, and Ben's just got a huge softball future ahead of him if that's what he wants.
James, if we can touch on the local league very briefly, the Premier League competition for Softball SA. Walkerville at the top, Port Adelaide second. Seacombe looks like a side that hasn't necessarily had a lot of success in recent times, making a bit of a run, but the competition is really tight. There's only about 6 or 7 wins between top and bottom, which is unusual for a local club competition.
Yeah, absolutely. You always sort of see that, top 3 or 4 teams are set almost about now just after the mid-season break, run into finals, which is in March. But any team can still make the top 4, depending on results going their ways or not. You mentioned Seacombe. I think Walkerville has been the same the last couple of years in that they've missed out on finals, but are back up to the top. A lot of premiership success with Walkerville. Port Adelaide's probably the only team that is steady at the top. Minor premiers last year, like I said, three grand finals in a row. They probably still are the team to beat. Walkerville have strengthened their lineup in the summer break, bringing in an extra catcher, maybe to relieve some pressure for Chelsea Robinson, one of their leaders, ably assisted by their batting lineup that just keeps growing. A young Georgia Mason, who's played in the under-18 group, is coming on leaps and bounds this year. Sophie King, a crafty veteran, is one of the league leaders in batting averages as well. So Walkerville looking pretty good. You mentioned Seacombe, led by Diaz and Peterson, who were in the Stars National Championship lineup, exceptional players, with Whitney Shepherd, who they brought in maybe as a B-grade pitcher, took our under-23s all the way through to a grand final in December at National Championship. So she's been a handy acquisition as well.
Hey, James, very quickly, you mentioned Chelsea Robinson there, who has played for Australia, the Aussie Spirit. At Walkerville, did she take over the number of a bit of a club legend a few months ago? I seem to vaguely recall that story, and I'm sure you would be across it.
It's a great story. Linda Martin, who we've renamed the Shield over the last couple of seasons from the Advertiser Shield. The Advertiser used to support the competition, not so much in recent years, but on our 80th
I know that feeling, mate.
On our 80th season, our board director, who is the chair of the Adelaide Club competition, he put a proposal forward, and it was unanimous that the Shield should be named after perhaps one of South Australia's greats. That should definitely be on our Mount Rushmore if you were to create one of legendary status in South Australia. Linda Martin is now the Shield's named after. she has returned to the sport. She's helping Carindale in our under-18s, and she also helps out at Walkerville again. The shield's named after her, and Chelsea Robinson is the leader of that club. She returned from pregnancy, motherhood to return to the sport. And I think to her surprise, they offered her the number 8 that Linda Martin used to wear, and she took it. Normally would wear number 16.
That's an amazing story, James. The whole softball story is incredible. Congratulations to you all. I mean, we have sort of prided ourselves on what the Adelaide Thunderbirds have done in netball and the Adelaide Giants have done in baseball. And I do feel like the Gillies Shield victory a month back kind of snuck under the radar a little bit. And it's great for us to have the opportunity just to shine a bit of a beacon on it, because it is a remarkable achievement by a remarkable group. As you said, Lexi Guilfoyle aside, not a lot of stars amongst them. Stars I use advisedly, being the nickname of the team. But, mate, you must be so proud of where softball has come from and got to in this state in the last couple of years.
Yeah, 4 national titles before I started in the role of state operations manager. We've won 7 now, 1 in under 19 women and 2 in open women. We have a great Dragons program for junior development. All our clubs and associations around the state are well aware we didn't do this on our own. The team didn't do it on their own. It's been the softball community that has really rallied together. There's been a lot of coaches come and go. There's been, for a while, a core group of players that took us from nothing up to contenders. And then, we've polished, whether it's the Premier League, and our live stream broadcasting through Spacequake Sports has also helped us create to be probably the number 1 domestic competition in the country. And, I'm super proud of that. The players are so proud to wear the tricolours, and we always push that with them at our state team induction day. We remind them every year that, you're not just playing for yourselves, your family, your club, your team, you're playing for your state. And we really are a pretty good community when it comes to representative softball and competitions, wanting to take it to the eastern states as well. But you mentioned the success of some of our other teams. There's no question about it that we're so proud of each of those sports. Giants missed out this year, but, back to back, it just adds to the number of championships out of this Diamond Sports facility here at West Beach that we've won in recent times. I think we're doing something right. We're getting things right on field, maybe a few things to tighten up off field, and maybe even a little bit of support from state government to go astray for a upgrade to our facility. And, you just never know. One thing I have noticed that Thunderbirds and the Giants have both had invites to sit in Parliament. I wouldn't mind that invite myself for our girls.
There you are. Well, I'm sure the Premier, Peter Malinauskas, and Sports Minister, Katrine Hildyard, are both regular listeners of ours, Wallace. So
we'll make sure they are. We'll make sure they are. They are after this.
Imminent.
Emily Burke, MLC, has taken over the Sport Minister portfolio just in the last week.
I should have recalled that. Yes,
beautiful.
Exactly right.
Have you already sent her a letter?
Reshuffle.
Yeah, we've invited her to our CFS round, so not this Friday, next Friday at Nembo Park in the Hills. Emergency Services Minister and Sports Minister now, so it'd be a great fit to have Emily come. But I've got to say, Katrine, as the Minister for Sport, and even when she was Shadow Minister for Sport, has always supported softball. She loves coming down. She's been to a number of our events. You've hosted our events before, Ben, and she loves being involved at softball. It was an absolute credit to that position. One of the best sports ministers I've worked with.
I have to be honest with you, and I don't want to sort of carry on forever about politicians. But you're exactly right with Katrine. I mean, it's not unusual for a politician to think, well, if there's no TV cameras there, I don't really need to be there either. But she would turn up, not just for softball. I saw her at basketball events, racing events, cricket events, you name it. She was there. And it would have been just as easy for her to put in an apology or send someone else along and spend the night watching maths in her trackies. But no, she would be routinely at functions. I've got to give her a lot of credit. I'm sure Emily Burke will be just as good in that role. But yeah, she has been quite incredible in her time, Katrine. I commend her.
James, thanks so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure, guys.
If you're enjoying this podcast, I'd encourage you to take a listen to Beyond the Club. It's a project I've been working on with Flinders University. Now I co-host it with Professor Sam Elliott, and we break down all the latest research on how to maximise the experience of junior and club athletes. There's a range of resources, special guests, and cutting-edge info on how you can make your club a safer, happier place for your kids and their club mates. Beyond the Club, wherever you get your podcasts.